It began on a cool May night in 2008, when Brandon Swanson vanished somewhere along a quiet gravel road in rural Minnesota. The air was still, the kind of early summer calm that carries the scent of damp soil and the faint hum of insects. He had been driving home after celebrating the end of his college semester, a routine trip that should have taken less than an hour. But sometime after midnight, his car left the paved highway and became lodged in a shallow ditch between fields. The road was unlit, bordered by wide stretches of farmland and drainage ditches that disappeared into darkness. Brandon called his parents, calm but frustrated, explaining that he was unhurt and just needed a ride. They stayed on the phone as he described landmarks, fences, gravel intersections, the distant glow of a town's lights. His father drove out to find him, headlights sweeping across the empty countryside. Yet, despite both of them flashing lights and honking horns, neither could see the other. The call continued for nearly half an hour, Brandon's voice steady, but growing tired as he decided to walk toward what he believed was a nearby town. His parents listened as he described the crunch of gravel underfoot and the sound of running water somewhere nearby. Then, abruptly, he said, "Oh no," and the line went silent. There was no scream, no crash, only the hollow click of a disconnected call. In the stillness that followed, the night reclaimed its quiet, leaving his parents staring into the dark, waiting for a voice that never returned. Within minutes, Brandon's parents began driving the grid of rural roads, headlights sweeping across culverts, fence lines, and the edges of plowed fields. The night air had turned cold, and low fog clung to the ditches, making visibility poor. They called friends, then local law enforcement, reporting their son missing before dawn. Deputies arrived as the first light spread across the horizon, turning the fields pale gold. The car was found quickly, its tires sunk into soft gravel, doors locked, no sign of struggle. Officers noted the position of the vehicle, photographed the scene, and marked tire impressions before towing it to a secure lot. The surrounding area was quiet, except for the wind moving through dry grass. Search teams formed at daybreak, volunteers and deputies walking shoulder to shoulder through uneven terrain. Radios crackled with updates as they checked culverts, tree lines, and drainage ditches. A K-9 unit was brought in, the dog pulling toward a nearby field before losing the scent near a stream. Investigators expanded the search radius, using ATVs to cover rough ground and coordinating with neighboring counties. Helicopters circled overhead, their rotors scattering dust across the gravel. Despite the scale of the effort, there were no footprints beyond a few partial impressions near the car. By evening, the searchers returned to the staging area exhausted, their boots caked with mud, faces drawn from the long day. The only sound was the steady hum of generators powering floodlights as officers reviewed maps and planned the next morning's sweep. In the days that followed, the investigation deepened into a methodical, multi-agency effort. Detectives interviewed friends who had seen Brandon earlier that night, confirming he had been sober and in good spirits. Cell phone records were subpoenaed, and technicians triangulated the final signal to a broad area near the county line. It was farmland, flat, open, and intersected by drainage routes that could flood after spring rains. Search coordinators divided the area into grids, assigning teams to walk measured distances with GPS trackers to ensure coverage. Dive teams probed nearby waterways using weighted lines and sonar, their wetsuits slick with cold water and silt. Evidence technicians logged every item recovered from the area, though none were linked to him. Meanwhile, the community mobilized. Flyers appeared in store windows and gas stations. Local radio stations broadcast updates and requests for volunteers. Candlelight vigils were held in town squares, families standing together in silence as the wind carried the smell of wax and lilac. His parents remained at the command post each day, speaking quietly with officers, handing out bottled water to searchers, refusing to leave until nightfall. The case drew regional attention, and soon state investigators joined, bringing mapping software and aerial imaging to refine the search zones. Yet, despite the technology and manpower, the landscape yielded nothing more than traces of wildlife and weathered debris. Each evening, the command tent filled with the low murmur of voices reviewing data, trying to find a pattern in the emptiness. Weeks turned into months, and theories began to circulate among investigators and the public alike. Some believed Brandon had fallen into one of the deep drainage channels that cut through the farmland, their banks steep and unstable after heavy rain. Others considered the possibility of disorientation, walking in circles through the dark, misjudging distances in the flat terrain. Law enforcement maintained a cautious stance, emphasizing evidence over speculation. They revisited the phone records, comparing tower pings to topographic maps, noting how rural coverage could distort location estimates. Search teams returned during dry spells, probing areas once underwater, while cadaver dogs were redeployed to test for residual scent. Media coverage intensified, with reporters standing along gravel roads, describing the mystery that had unsettled the region. Online forums dissected every detail, from the final words on the call to the layout of the roads. Yet no credible leads emerged. Investigators documented each tip, logging times and sources, then cross-referencing them against verified sightings. None matched. The case file thickened with maps, transcripts, and weather reports, each page a record of effort without resolution. For the family, the waiting became its own kind of endurance, measured not in days, but in unanswered questions. The farmland, once familiar, had become a vast and silent witness to something no one could see. Years later, the disappearance remains one of Minnesota's most haunting unsolved cases. The fields where searchers once walked have changed with the seasons, crops rising and falling over the same soil that was combed so carefully. Each spring, as the snow melts and the ditches fill again, local deputies still receive calls from residents who think they've found something. A scrap of fabric, a bone, a memory that won't rest. The family continues to advocate for improved rural search protocols, urging better coordination between counties and faster deployment of resources when someone goes missing in remote areas. Brandon's case is now studied in law enforcement training programs as an example of how quickly a person can vanish even in open terrain. His parents have spoken publicly about the importance of persistence, describing how hope can coexist with grief. The community still holds an annual vigil, candles flickering against the prairie wind, the silence broken only by the rustle of grass. Investigators occasionally revisit the file, reviewing maps and reports with fresh eyes, though no new evidence has surfaced. The story endures not because of what was found, but because of what remains missing: a young man, a single phone call, and a landscape that keeps its secrets. In the quiet of those rural roads, the unanswered echoes linger, reminding everyone how thin the line can be between the known and the lost.